time for Ball Talk with Sanford and Johnny. From what's happening on the Blue at Boise State to the Mountain West and beyond. The biggest storylines, the best guests, and most outlandish opinions from two dudes who eat, sleep, and breathe college football. All Bronco Nation news broadcasts come from the Western Collective studios. Head down to Western Collective's locations in Garden City or downtown Boise to try some of their delicious beers, including the Horseshoe Golden Ale, the first beer to support an NIL collective. You can also pick up any of Western Collective's beers or vodka seltzers at most major retailers in Idaho. Ball Talk with Sanford and Johnny, featuring former Boise State quarterback and longtime coach Mike Sanford and KTIK 95.3 FM The Ticket's John Mallory on Bronco Nation News.
Season 2, Episode 7, back from the bye week. Ball Talk. I'm John Mallory, KTIK Boise Radio, Bronco Nation News. Good to see your face. Former Boise State quarterback, long-time college football coach, and now Mr. Media over there at Altitude Sports and what other endeavor he's into in the Mile High City. Mike Sanford, good to see you. Rocking your Boise State gear, ready for one of the biggest games, in road conference history for this program on a Friday night in a city filled with star power. Going to be a good episode of Ball Talk. What's good with you, man?
Johnny, it feels like it's been a year, brother. We haven't had Ball Talk in forever. Wasn't it a game day Ball Talk was the last time we did it, a morning of game. It was a bunch of fun. Dude, it's been a long bye week. As a Boise State supporter, as an alum, it just feels like they haven't played forever. And it's wild because college football was out of control this past Saturday. A lot of different stuff going on in the great landscape of college football. But man, I am so excited for this. But I did want to wear this shirt today because I sense there's a little bit of questioning from the Boise State fan base of my loyalty to Boise State. I am here in Colorado, and I am a media member, but I also follow my former football team very closely. And I came out in support, not of saying that Travis Hunter is the leader in the clubhouse of the Heisman Trophy, but two things that I did say. I said that the Heisman Trophy race is far from over. True or false, Johnny?
That's true.
Yes, right. There's
far
5 games
from
left.
Over. Yes,
5 games left. Over. And then the second thing I said is that you can't say that one Heisman candidate over another has greater character. That's all I said. I want Ashton Jeanty to win the freaking Heisman Trophy. It's my alma mater. When I signed at Boise State in 1999, when I committed to Dirt Cutter in 1999, I would never imagined any time having a Heisman Trophy winner from my alma mater. I knew that Boise State was going to be a dominant program. I knew what I was signing up for, but now you're talking about a freaking Heisman Trophy. I want Ashton Jeanty to win the Heisman. But I'm just going to tell you, by going on social media and shaming other candidates, that's not going to do a damn thing for the Heisman. It's not going to do anything positive or negative. And so you get nothing out of it. I did see it, and I am around Travis Hunter a lot in this media. We cover him very closely. Tremendous football player, tremendous young man, but he's not right now in the lead in the clubhouse for the Heisman Trophy winner. That is right now Ashton Jeanty. And in 2 days, and it'd be 48 hours and 20 some odd minutes, you're going to be kicking off with the biggest opportunity, in my opinion, for the national audience, not on the Peacock. You don't have to play on the Peacock. The national audience is going to be tuned in to watch Ashton Jeanty against a very, very capable UNLV defense. And I am so excited for the showcase.
Oh, Sandman, we're going to have a good one. I can already tell. This is like CFP form on a Wednesday night with Ball Talk. I think it's fair to say, okay, how about this? Ashton Jeanty probably wins the Heisman Trophy. Agree with that?
Right now, yes. I mean, that.
Yeah. As we sit right here in the world. Yep.
Dude,
as Kennesaw State
football coach,
is going to beat Liberty.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Kennesaw State's 0-6 and up right now on another one of the group of 5 schools that were undefeated And we're on the Vegas betting odds for making the CFP. About 7 slots behind. Cross them the hell off. Bye. Yep. Didn't like you anyway, Liberty. I thought you were an absolute train wreck against Oregon without even their starter, many of their starters playing last year in whatever Fiesta Bowl, sugar. I don't know. It was terrible. See ya.
But yeah, Ashton Jeanty probably wins the Heisman. This program, as you know, and you were talking about it, built on opportunities in big games with big stages. You know, as you remember, you played on all those exotic nights and everybody got to see the trick plays and the blue turf and leading the nation in scoring 3 consecutive years when you were a player on those Dan Hawkins slit your throat teams. And, you know, you see this now and, you know, they have this opportunity. I think the Friday is perfect. This isn't buried around. Look at some of the other games on Saturday, mega matchups. This is a hell of an appetizer to a really cool weekend. And it's the best player. It's the most outstanding. It's the most fun to watch player in the country playing in this town where, I mean, the tail of the tape matches up in this thing. The record, coaches, storylines, the star power with Ashton Jeanty. Feels like this could be, you can talk as a coach, you can talk as a media member, you can talk as a fan, but this has that feel to it, I think, where this could be a magical Friday night for this program. What are your thoughts thinking about this thing from whatever hat you're putting on?
Well, in the South, they call them, I got the chill bumps right now thinking about it. And Johnny, if I just look real quick here let's see here if I could go ahead. How do I flip myself out here? I'm going to do this real quick.
Stop producing, man. What are you doing, man? Why are you pressing buttons?
Let me drive the bus for a second here. You see those 2 helmets behind me, Johnny? I'm so damn excited about this game. I pulled out a helmet where my dad was the head football coach at. It's just been collecting dust. Hadn't been doing a whole lot. Don't have a lot of UNLV pride. You know, I coached there my first 2 years as a graduate assistant. But for me, Johnny, that's where it all began. It began at a bit of a different stadium. It was about a 29-minute drive from UNLV's campus instead of a nice little John across the strip into a beautiful stadium. But this is a big matchup, man. This is a big matchup. My parents live in Las Vegas. I am so pissed off I can't be there. But I'm really excited that I get to call the CSU New Mexico game on television on Saturday. So everything comes to trade, man.
Great plug. Great.
Let's see. Dude. Oh yeah. Hey, you know what? I'm going to be on the left-hand side anyway because my name's on the left-hand side, Johnny. So yeah, I should be producing the show, Johnny.
Great stuff, Coach. Yeah, you talked about it though, like, you know, the program and this opportunity on a Friday. As a fan, you worried at all here? I mean, is this going to be one of those nightmares that your fan base is going to talk about, like some of those other moments that everybody knows are, you know, really close still in their hearts? I mean, are you scared at all as a fan that I mean, the spread's 3. People think this is going to be close. Where are you, fanboy?
Well, I think Boise State's a better football team. I do. I think Boise State has the best player right now in college football. And don't at me, it is today. He is the Heisman winner if the Heisman was given away after 7 weeks. And he is, I guess, 6 weeks for Boise State. And he is playing against a fellow group of 5 defense. How has that gone? Pretty damn well for Ashton Jeanty. How to go against the number 1 team in the country on the road. Pretty damn well for Ashton Jeanty against Oregon, having dang near 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. I just think that Ashton Jeanty is going to be a difference maker in this game, but I think the biggest difference maker is going to be the Boise State defense. And what we see from the Boise State defense is a team that has had dominant performances, has addressed some of its deficiencies. There are still a few unknowns. You know, the Utah State game, it was out of the balance, but there are a bunch of passing yards. Utah State did it against New Mexico again. They keep their run for 1 million yards. I think that if Boise State's front 7 can cause the type of havoc that I think it will cause with UNLV. This Malik Williams is a good player. Johnny's been playing for 4 games. He's already the team's leading rusher, and he's almost tripled Matthew Sluka's passing output from the first 3 weeks. He is a good football player. He's a transfer from Campbell University. Do you know Campbell University's mascot by chance, Johnny? You're a college football lover. Just throw it out, man. I know you know it.
The Bison.
They're the Campbell Camels.
Damn it.
How good is that, man? Do you know where Campbell University is?
I think it's in South Carolina.
I have no clue.
Dang
I just know they're the Camels. But Johnny, here's the thing that does. Anytime you're a defensive coordinator and you got Eric Chenander preparing right now for UNLV, are they consistently dominant offense? No. If you watch the Oregon State game, they were playing with their food, I thought, for a majority of that game. I don't think Oregon State's good, Johnny. I don't think they're a very good football team.
You've seen them a few times. You've seen them enough.
Yeah, and their arrow is trending down. Yeah. I mean, it is trending down in a hurry. And so anybody that thinks that's going to be an exclamation point game at the end of the season for the Broncos, it's not, in my opinion.
Okay. A nightmare on Black Friday or something.
But, if anything, it could be a bad game, but it's not going to be a positive showcase. It's not going to be like, oh, they beat Oregon State. Look at us. No, this ain't your mom and dad's Oregon State right now. So I think that this is one of those games as a defensive coordinator, Eric Chenander, when you faced a legitimately, I'm talking top flight dual threat quarterback, and that's what Malik Williams is. He is a true dual threat, the leading rusher. The guy's accounted for 19 touchdowns. Now he does have some interceptions now, 9 interceptions to his 10 touchdowns, but 19 total touchdowns in 4 complete games of being the starting quarterback. Those are pretty troubling numbers, Johnny. And it's because of the ability when the play doesn't work, just like you saw a year ago. But I think this is a more talented version of the quarterback that transferred to USC from UNLV. What was his name again? He's out of sight, out of mind, not even playing. What's his name? Do you remember?
Yeah, Jaden Maeva.
Maeva. This is a more talented version of that. It's a more elusive version, more explosive. Maeva ran to throw it, whereas I think Malik Williams is the guy that is going to run to either throw it or run it. And when he does take off and tuck the football, and that's a different challenge. And so the amount of heavy boxes that Boise State does present, the amount of varied blitz looks that Boise State does present, we've seen more traditional pocket passers like Spencer Petras. We did see our guy from Washington State and caused a lot of problems for our guy Mateer. This guy's a little bit more, Mateer's more crafty, more like the ultimate grit guy. This dude's slippery and fast. And if he catches a seam, it's a little different than Mateer. So I that's my biggest concern going to this game for Boise State's defense is just dealing with such an athlete at the position.
You know what's weird?
He truly is that.
I mean, they're better in every offensive category, yet Sluka wins the gig, whether it's spring ball, certainly fall camp, and you've probably been a part of staffs as a player, certainly as a coach, where, I don't know what goes into the deciding factor, but you watch UNLV and you're like, Malik is way better than the Sluka kid. Like, why did this not happen in fall camp? Like, where did they miss on that? You've seen with Sluka and obviously with Malik, sounds like you're much more of a fan of Malik than Matt Sluka. Sometimes does that just happen where a guy can win a fall camp starting gig, but then when you both kind of see him in action, you can say, hey, we missed on that?
Well, you got to think about what are their 2 traits that were elite traits relative to the position. It's the quarterback run game, right? How often are you hitting those guys? And how often are you really allowing them to play real tackle football in practice, in scrimmage situations?
You guys never tackle, ever.
What I ended up finding throughout the course of spring ball, training camp, so much of your evaluation is on fictitious football, especially if you choose to run your quarterback, especially if that's his greatest attribute. How many times at a practice or at a scrimmage do you hear the fast whistle? Especially when you have a defensive-minded head coach. Barry Odom, yep, defensive-minded head coach. The quick whistle, you don't even get to see that second play. And now in college football and even in the National Football League, the second play is almost the first play now. When things break down and the quarterback breaks contain, that is the play now oftentimes. That's where a lot of the explosives are created.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to give up 4 yards or do you want to get beat for 17? And you get beat for 17 because you properly defend the 4 yards. And you're like, what the hell am I doing out here? It's like with Boise State, back to their defense real quick, leading the nation in sacks. But they're giving up, what are they, 116, 120 in passing yards per game. No interceptions by a corner. You mentioned Haj Malik Williams has a bunch of picks. Maybe this is finally the game. Prater had the count, and it was like 260 attempts going back to last year, the last time a corner on BSU had an interception in a game. Maybe this is an opportunity, but defensively, I mean, are you willing to lead the nation in sacks, but in doing so, having to give up a lot on the back end, including, heck, being up there in terms of splash plays given up? Like, how do you find that sweet spot?
David Shaw, actually his father, Willie Shaw, who was a longtime NFL defensive coordinator and secondary coach, he used to look at defenses we were preparing to play, and he'd be like, tell you what, man, that's a big play defense. Big plays for them, big plays for us. And there's something to be said for that. I mean, it's a little bit of that. You're taking your defensive schematics and the playmakers to Las Vegas, baby. Viva Las Vegas. Let's get those dice out and let's roll them. And that's what it is, man. It's high risk, high reward. You're putting $1,000 down on a plus 1,100, baby. Let's go to work. And if you hit, it's awesome. And frankly, Boise State, since the Georgia Southern game, with game in the balance, it's been hitting it defensively. Can you argue with that? You could talk about stats and meaningless games or meaningless parts of the games and all that stuff, but game in the balance, Johnny, since the Georgia Southern game, you can say the Oregon game. I just think Oregon just won the football game at the end. I mean, they found a way to win the game. It wasn't because the defense fell apart, tragically. We talked about
it was the 2 special teams touchdowns. That's what lost the Oregon game, man. It was the 2 special team teeters given up. Period. End of story.
Since the game, with the game in the balance, Johnny, since the trip to Statesboro to open up the season, when do you feel like this defense has really been bitten in the ass because of high risk, high reward, and on the bad side of that?
There's still been some splash plays given up. The Washington State early, but no, it's just kind of like one of those deals where teams with good offenses feels like they always get a lot of sacks. Why? Well, the teams they're playing are throwing more often when they're behind. So you just have more opportunities. You get more at bats, coach.
No, you're right.
Sacks. And that's what happens. Like, I looked at the Colts and the Peyton Manning years. They always had all these sacks. Yeah, because they always got to play with a lead. I think that's what this defense is doing to get some of those sacks. But also on this thing, coach, God damn it. Sorry, man. I got one of my cats needs to get the heck out of here. Sorry, bro. Hey. But playing with the lead, man, it feels like sometimes you give up more yards because they're not that big a deal in situational football. You know what? Right now, heck, if we give up 30 yards this drive, but it takes you 3 minutes to get it, we'll give you that trade. Okay. Situational football. And, everybody's preaching that right now. So maybe some of those are situationally. Sounds like you're not buying it. And I also want to throw, there was a comment I wanted to post on this where you feel, I think it's the spread, Boise State -2.5, -3. Maybe it goes up to 3.5 if it isn't there already. You think Boise State, if they do win, they win by, 4 or more points? It feels like to me, real quick, coach, like if this game is that close, like if Boise State wins by 2, I feel like I'll be more impressed with UNLV in a loss than I would be Boise State in a win if this game is that close. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's the Ashton Jeanty show. I think it's 42-22. And Jeanty has a couple more Heisman moments, and it kicks off a hell of a football weekend. I think that's where this game is going. But hell, been wrong a lot, and we'll see about UNLV. They seem to pass all these tests, and you know more than anybody how hard it is to win in Vegas. He's 15-6 there.
Who is?
Barry Odom.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said I am. I'm like, hell no. The 2 years I coached at UNLV, we were nowhere near 15-6. I'm like, whoa, Johnny, I think we won 4 games in 2 years.
No, that's tracking down a cephalopoid on foot, right? Nobody does that. Going 15-6 in Vegas, like,
yeah, it's been really
obviously
impressive.
is doing
really impressive.
What do you know about Barry Odom? What impresses you about him? Like,
I know a lot, Johnny. My dad and Barry Odom know each other very well. His son, Garrett Odom, was one of my dad's 2 rotating quarterbacks just a year ago on their path to the state championship for the Faith Lutheran Crusaders, baby. He ended up transferring back to Fayetteville, Arkansas. He's playing at Fayetteville High School as a starting quarterback there. I talked with Barry Odom at the state championship game. I talked with Barry at Mountain West Media Days. My dad knows him very well. You know what? He's just a really good football coach. He knows the SEC world very well, having coached at Missouri, been the head coach, obviously, in the transition to the SEC, and also having been the defensive coordinator at the University of Arkansas and in Fayetteville, which is obviously why Garrett went back to that program. It's a really good high school football program. I think that because of his ties to the SEC, he understands how to put a roster together. And through every way possible, whether it be the transfer portal, whether it be junior college guys, he has done a phenomenal job of retaining the proper players from what Marcus Arroyo built. That's what gave them the pop in year 1. It wasn't, everybody thought that Odom just went out and got 80 new scholarship players. He didn't. He retained a lot of that roster. And Marcus Arroyo had done a good job accumulating talent. So the cupboards weren't completely bare as it relates to this health of that program when Barry Odom got there. But he is a really good defensive mind. He understands the importance of the depth of the roster. I mean, hell, how could you say, how more apparent is him building the depth of this roster than having Matthew Sluka, who was the toast of college football after beating Houston and Kansas, and then it blows up. Oh, actually, we got a better guy. So go ahead and leave Sluka. I got 2 quarterbacks that can play.
It's such a bad look for the Sluka kid. It's such a bad look for him. And just that whole operation. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, he's pulling a Sluka. Oh, yeah, okay. Doesn't get his money after 4 games. He uses it as a red shirt and just opens up shop. Okay, he's pulling a Sluka. It kind of sounds like it's something like that. But yeah, not a good look for the kid and the team. I've seen them almost every UNLV game this year. They're way more explosive. Maybe the schedule's lightened up a little bit as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, they're feeling really good there. That's interesting about Barry Odom, man. Sounds like would you work for a guy like Odom?
I mean, that's a kind of an off the.
Yeah, you're stumbling, man.
What I'm saying is that's a hard question to answer when you're not actively wanting to get back into coaching, right? I mean, if 5 years ago, yeah, I mean, he's the kind of guy like being around him. He's very stoic, he just is very straightforward. There's not a lot of fluff and BS, and I love that, dude. I'll be honest. There's times where I get a little bit frustrated having worked for bosses that are so eccentric, so personality driven, because it's just like, dude, let's just have a real conversation, man. Can we just talk like normal human beings? And that's who Barry Odom is. He's a very, when you conversate with Barry Odom, which I have multiple times, it's just a really good conversation. Clean communicator, asks great questions, gives great responses. He's just a real human being. He's not a game show host. Like I oftentimes call a lot of these head coaches that feel like it's got to be a dog and pony show in front of the media, in front of TV screens when they're on a documentary, right? Like I've worked for a few of those.
Yep. I've seen a couple of those documentaries. So yeah, good stuff. College football. Keep the content coming. Ball Talk Season 2, Episode 7. Yeah, gosh, what are we? About a half hour into this thing. Coach, let's see what we're working on coming back from the bye week. Let's get that mic drop.
Well, if you saw my very maybe controversial post on the X machine, the artist formerly known as Twitter, you would see that I made a very, very bold proclamation of what Friday night is and what it is to me. And having been around the sport, having coached in Group of 5 football, having coached in really significant Group of 5 games that ultimately led to a Fiesta Bowl. This is the most consequential Group of 5, or in the BCS era, they called it the non-AQ matchup in the history of college friggin' football. Boise State traveling to UNLV, a rematch of the Mountain West Championship game. And here's why. This is the first year of the college football playoff, expanded to a 12-team pool. This is the best opportunity for a Cinderella story, which I don't think Boise State or UNLV is a Cinderella story, but even Army or Navy, even Tulane, UNLV, I think is still in the mix there. To be able to not just make it and sit at the table with the other 11 that are all going to be from, I believe, mostly 2 conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten Conference. The Big 12 is going to have a seat. I think they get 1 seat. The ACC is going to have a seat. My guess is they have 1 seat. And then the rest of it is SEC, Big Ten, and Boise State, UNLV, Army, Navy, or Tulane. Yeah, Notre Dame. I think they're going to lose to one of the academy schools, but that's a later prediction. I believe that this matchup is the most important game in the history of Boise State's program as well. You have a Heisman Trophy frontrunner. You have a marquee matchup against UNLV. And the reason this game is so much different, in my opinion, than even the Boise State-Nevada matchup with Colin Kaepernick and all the different things, Boise State was not going to be in the national championship. The SEC, Big Ten, and at the time, Pac-12 and ACC would not have allowed that to happen. The college football shareholders would not have allowed that to happen. The other thing that's a little bit different is that the UNLV has 2 victories over Big 12 teams and a 3rd victory over a semi or artist formerly known as a Power 5 conference team in Oregon State. So UNLV carries national weight. Boise State has the opportunity to do something to not just get a seat at the table, but even more than that. This is why this is the biggest game in the history of Group of 5 non-AQ football. Whoever wins this matchup and continues the trend towards the remainder of the season towards that CFP, if indeed that is UNLV, you got a shot in the college football playoffs. Because last time I checked, I have not seen anything remotely close to a flawless football team. Johnny, I said it to you a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. You said it was Texas. I said, hell no. I said they're going to get their ass kicked by Georgia. They did. There is no flawless team in college football. Any team can be beat on any given day, and that's why this game is so consequential. Because who represents the non-AQ, non-group of 4, Power 4? You got a shot to win this dang thing. You got a shot to make some noise. You're going to see some college basketball effect over on the college football playoff side. And this is the biggest game, and I can't wait for it. Boise State, take care of business. Do what you do. Play behind your strengths. Beat UNLV on your way to a college football playoff. It's got to be done. That's the mic drop.
Great stuff. Ball Talk, Season 2, Episode 7. A couple of things I wanted to get to now. I wanted to talk about Ashton Jeanty, Coach. Let you get a breather there for a second, because the thing with that, with Jeanty, let me go solo for a second. You coached running backs at a very high level in college. Is a great story. You went to Barry Sanders' house, I think in Wichita, Oklahoma City. Thank you. And recruited his son successfully to Stanford. You recruited Christian McCaffrey out of high school to Stanford. Like, as a former running back coach, Jay Ajayi, people could say, has had the best single season rushing any Boise State running back has had. That 2014 season is the best rushing year collectively the best all-purpose season, scrimmage yard season Boise State's had. You called, I think, every single play that year, getting the ball to Jay Ajayi that season. Like Ashton Jeanty, through your eyes and seeing what you've seen. And I mean, the Barry Sanders thing, how he's tracking this record down, he is ahead of pace, man. College football. I know college football. That Barry record was something like Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hit streak or Ted Williams hitting 406, right? The only time I ever hit 406 was on a breathalyzer, dude. Kidding. But insane numbers, dude. He's on pace to break Barry's 88 record. Like, what do you see, man? This is insane, right?
Yeah, I was not. I don't remember Barry Sanders as a college athlete. I wasn't old enough. Do you remember watching him as an Oklahoma State running back, Johnny?
I do. Like
in real time, like not in highlights, where you followed it. How old were you then?
I do. I was third, fourth grade, probably.
Okay, I was 6.
Okay, so I was probably 9, 10.
Yeah, I was like in the middle of moving 5 times before I was 6 years old. So it was just trying to figure out where where the bathroom was in my new house, let alone watch Oklahoma State, because we didn't have a chance to watch those games back then. Johnny was on what's on the boob tube? Notre Dame. Oh yeah. So I got to know Notre Dame really well before my dad even coached there. I didn't have a chance to watch Big 12 football, man. At the time, what was that?
Big 8. I remember watching the bowl game. I remember watching the bowl game. They played the Holiday Bowl against Wyoming. Other than that, though, it was just kind of highlights. And then, obviously, as a rookie with the Lions, Barry's just phenomenal. But this is the neighborhood Jeanty's living in with college football right now. It's insane.
No, it's exactly the neighborhood he's living in, and it is every bit of praise that is being heaped in the direction of Ashton Jeanty is completely deserved. It's not just that he's incredibly talented. It's his work ethic. It's the humility that he consistently shows. I had a little bit of a back and forth with my guy, Bronco Blameyer, him praising the heck out of Ashton Jeanty. Dude, I agree with everything that Bronco said about Ashton Jeanty. My deal was a little bit more just about, I live near Travis Hunter. The guy's incredible as a human. He's an awesome dude. Is he dancing in end zone? Cool. Does that make you a bad guy? No, watch the NFL. Everybody does it. So everybody in the NFL is a bad guy. But yeah, the guy is incredible. The guy is everything that you'd want. And I've said this now probably 50 times since even last season. He's everything you'd want to represent your alma mater, which is, in the case of me, that's what is going on. I love it, man. I get to wear my Boise State gear around a little bit differently than I did a year ago at this time, Johnny, in Denver. It's interesting. Boise State,
they're back, dude. They are cool again. I was thinking about that. Like, Boise State was for so long, and you were a part of it. You guys were just cool, man. Hate you, love you, whatever. You had all this cool stuff, and you were like this new money of college football, and then it kind of went away. It went away. It just wasn't as cool. Now it feels like it's super cool again, and Ashton Jeanty's at the front of that, and this team, and they're going to have that. They're going to have that opportunity on Friday if they kick UNLV's ass, and I think they are, man. I do. I like Boise State big in this game. I just don't see him stopping Deuce, dude. I just I'll believe it when I see it. And
you got
UNLV's,
You got to think that the plan for UNLV's defense, because they are good defensively, man, and they have an elite player in Woodard. They've played close games, Johnny. Dang near. They've won, was it 3 really close games? Oregon State ended up finishing fairly close. Their 2 wins against Big 12 teams in Houston, Kansas. There was one other close game.
Syracuse. They lost overtime.
They've been in close games. They've been in high-profile games against teams that probably had better athletes than them. I just think that UNLV's entire strategy is going to be to commit an inordinate amount of human beings to the box and play with edges. And that's when you've seen it work in fits and starts against Ashton Jeanty, it's been heavy boxes, but not all-out blitzes. And I think that Barry Odom, as a defensive mind, he's been tasked, Johnny, with having to stop, guys like the freak show that's carrying the football right now for the Baltimore Ravens. He's been tasked with stopping Georgia's running backs, Alabama's running backs, Auburn's running backs in the heyday. Like, he's seen some incredible backs in his time as a defensive coordinator and head coach in the Southeast Conference.
Okay.
He's got a plan, and it's going to be an interesting plan. I haven't talked to him. I'm not close to him like that. But I think it's going to be a big time box population, a lot of man free, a mixture of some pressure, and make Maddox Madsen beat you if you can neutralize Ashton Jeanty. That's what I see, Johnny. Because
what's neutralize Ashton Jeanty? Give me some ballpark numbers on this. We were talking about that on Idaho Sports Talk today too. Like, what's a good effort from UNLV? I thought Hawaii played pretty well, and he had 7 yards a carry and 200 yards plus.
Just think if if Hawaii with that plan, if they would have had a even remotely functional offensive football team.
So they're not on the field as much.
Well, I'm saying that they score points. Hawaii didn't score points.
No, 13 to 7. Where at one point in that game,
they didn't score points, Johnny. And I think
what's containing it for you?
Neutralizing doesn't mean, I don't even think it's for UNLV. It's going to be about the final stat number. I think it's about the opportunities to get to populate the box and get Boise State behind the sticks on first and or second down to set up 3rd and 7+. And I'm talking about, if you do that and you're UNLV, you do that on 4 of your first 6 series at some point in those series. I think that Barry Odom and UNLV will like their chances to make this a competitive football game. And that's the piece, that population box defense with good players that can tackle. I don't know, man.
So you think it'll be closer? The Woodard kid is fantastic. Like Leighton Vander Esch, Jay Tust was saying here, and I thought that was a spot on comparison with length and athleticism. Maybe a poorer man's version of LVE in college, but you watch that guy and he just doesn't go away. He's in on every play. I really want to see how the offensive line and what the game plan is to neutralize him and keep him off Jeanty's ass. And the challenge is there. Maybe you could speak on that a little bit too. When you face just a BAMF linebacker like that as an offensive coach, an OC, how the hell do you take him out of the game if it's possible? Yeah,
the inside linebacker position is such a unique one to game plan for. Typically when it's like a defensive end, we always wanted, like Aiden Hutchinson, we wanted him on the backside of all of our zone schemes, because if he was on the front side, meaning like the way that you were running your zone, he had a one-on-one block, and you didn't want that. So you wanted a formation and shift it to be able to get him on the backside of the scheme where you have your tight end, possibly a wing tight end, to be able to create some double teams at the point of attack. And that's essentially what Boise State has found a lot of their success on, is the duo play, which is, frankly, it's a bunch of double teams on the backside. We did play against Manti Te'o when he was having that historic year at Notre Dame in 2012, I believe it was.
Heisman finalist. And I'd say we had our blitz package answers for him. We knew how they were trying to isolate him. At Stanford, we studied the living crap out of everything that their blitz package did. And really what they were trying to do is isolate him on a running back in a one-on-one situation. And so we changed the idea of the Mike to get the offensive line slide to go for Manti Te'o. In the run game, I think the biggest answer you can have is try to run at the side of the inside linebacker, because if they're on the backside of the play on the second level, so that means if, like, say your inside zone is going to the right and Woodard if he's on the backside, that backside player a lot of times can come around and make the play, or they can start stacking the double team and then backdoor it. That's what really, really efficient linebackers can do, is just mess with the double teams and then shoot through a gap because they backdoored the path of the offensive double team. So those are things. If you're running it to them
to the side of a Woodard. A lot of times it can help, but to be honest, it can be challenging, man. It could be tough to, these defenses nowadays aren't just lining up with the Will linebacker into the boundary 100% of the time, or the Mike linebackers always to the field. There's so much multiplicity to where they line those guys up, and even switching them at the last second. They're interchangeable parts. The two inside linebackers in the system that most people are running in 4-2-5, or all the different 3-3-5 iterations. So I don't think there's anything you can do to prepare specifically for an inside linebacker. I just think that Boise State's got to continue to do what it does, and that's mix it up. I do think maybe this isn't popular in Boise, Idaho. I know you guys have spent a lot more time talking and researching this than me. I do think this is a game where Maddox Madsen's going to have to deliver, and I think he's going to have to deliver throwing the football against man coverage down the field. And he's got a great group of wide receivers to give a chance on back shoulders and 50-50 throws. And, he's got that Russell Wilson-like deep ball. It feels like it's like a moon ball, and it just comes right down on the receiver in that proximity. And I love watching it. And so I do think it's a Maddox Madsen type of a game. Not that he's going to be throwing for 4 bills or anything like that, but you got to keep them honest, and you got to make them pay for a very stacked box defense. Because I do think they're a really smart mind like Barry Odom that knows football and has a ton of experience at a high level. Yeah. He's going to have a good plan for Ashton Jeanty. And I don't.
You're right. Think of all the NFL stars Barry Odom has schemed against and probably contained. So maybe this certainly feels like the last decent shot a team has to maybe even remotely contain him. And by that, I mean, I don't know, under 165, one teeter, $165. I think if you do that, you probably think you can beat Boise State. What you're hearing, and you remember the process from going to the NFL from college, and by no means am I a scout, certainly not a draft analyst, but I followed the draft my whole life and whatnot, and I watched Jeanty, and I just don't see how he isn't a first-round talent. And I know the running back position doesn't call for some of this. A couple of years ago, you had Gibbs and Bijan go in the first round because they're just that good. I don't know if there's a running back renaissance. I know my boy Kellen Moore is loving him some Saquon Barkley this year. Question. God, he's saving him. Ashton Jeanty, what are you hearing as far as NFL and draft? It's kind of sad. He's going to be out of Boise in like a couple of months after the season. He's getting to the facility wherever he's going to go, and he's got to go through the whole draft process. But what do you see him? First rounder for you too, and what are people telling you?
Yeah, so we cover everything Denver Broncos, and it's a fanatical fan base, Johnny. It's one of the most well-covered media, in terms of media representation of any team in the National Football League. And I saw that last year firsthand being at the Combine. It felt like it was almost 2-1, 3-1 for a majority of our media outlets compared to, say even the New York Giants or the Jets, which was shocking to me. I was like, the New York media's got to come 50, 75 deep. The Denver media came 35, 50 deep. And
so the Combine, huh?
Yeah, I was shocked, Johnny. I was absolutely, my mind was blown. So the point of that is that the Denver media has a lot of different people that are following the draft class already. There's a lot of conversations about Shedeur Sanders, about Travis Hunter, and a lot of Denver Broncos media outlets and fans are clamoring for this Ashton Jeanty in Denver. And the Broncos will most likely pick, because they're having a good season. They're most likely going to pick probably in that 15 to 22 area. And I think a lot of people think that would be potentially a realistic spot for a running back of anybody's caliber, because so many teams are afraid to draft running backs. So there's a lot of hope in even in Denver that the Broncos could end up with Ashton Jeanty as their first round pick.
Yeah, so you see it too. I mean, your first round pick, you get him for 5 years guaranteed, slap a U.S. mail sticker on his ass, and he is my offense for 5 years, and then extension, whatever. I mean, I think he's going to be terrific in the NFL, Coach Sanford. I can't wait to see what he's going to do. But,
the question I get asked all the time, even being at Broncos practice, everybody says, can that guy catch the ball out of the backfield? I'm like, oh, can he? Like, Like,
he's terrific.
does
Played
he have-
receiver in high school. I saw some Pass Pro video of him, and I was like salivating watching Pass Pro highlights of him.
He does everything.
You would love it as a former running back coach too.
He does everything, and a year ago, before I think I saw the consistency of top end speed that we've seen on display this season against everybody, including the University of Oregon. That was the eye opener, I think, for even scouts, and the national narrative is like, dude, Oregon doesn't have any slow guys in their secondary.
They don't.
He just ran away from them.
There was a play he scored, against Oregon. He went up the middle, and he would have scored on two-hand touch. He didn't get touched.
It's
he
crazy.
Ran up the middle and bust to the right to the outside, and it was afterburners, man. It was like
a year ago,
Bo Jackson in the Kingdom stuff, dude. Kenny Easley, crazy, man.
A year ago, like well, at the time, I thought was an incredible compliment of Ashton Jeanty, not knowing his true top speed, not having seen the catalog of broken tackles, forced missed tackles that he's put on tape this year, which I think just separates him. I actually said a year ago that he reminded him of the most complete and most dominant back in every running back category that I had ever coached. And that was Stephon Taylor at Stanford. And is that a big name to a lot of people? No, it's not. But Stephon Taylor in college, man, what's that?
Was he a 2,000-yard guy for you?
Yes. Yeah. Stephon Taylor, his college. I mean, we were going after this same record, man. We were talking about it. It was absolutely insane. So here's what Stephon Taylor did in the 2 years that he did not go for two. In 2012, he had just shy of 1,600. But the year before on just 242 carries had 1,330, 23. He ended up having a total of 40 touchdowns in his career at Stanford and 4,300 rushing yards. The reason I use that comp was not because, he was the best running back I coached because I was his position coach. Dude, he was an incredible pass protector. He didn't fumble the football with any type of regularity. He caught the ball incredibly well out of the backfield. The only difference is that the reason Stephon Taylor didn't get a whole bunch more run in the National Football League is that he ran the 4.8s. And that's not going to be what Ashton Jeanty does. He was an incredible running back. He didn't have that home run ability. Ashton Jeanty has that home run ability, and that's the separator.
Imagine Jeanty at the combine.
I almost wouldn't even participate, man. I don't know. Do the bench press, do the short shuttle. I don't know.
If he does, he's gonna be relentless and terrific and outstanding. You thinking, especially the weight.
He'll probably lean up too. I bet he leans up if he does run the 40. He probably leans up a bunch because a lot of backs do that. They lean up. They look a lot different at the combine than they do, when training camp rolls around because they want to run the time. The time is the separator.
He's like 215, 216. Is that what he's listed at? So you'd say get down to like 210?
Yeah, like 208, 210. And you just run your best 40 time. You keep your upper body strength intact because you're in phenomenal shape. And the 225 test, I bet Jeanty does 137 of them or something ridiculous because he's just a human muscle ball.
And he is. He is a human muscle. We could talk about him all day.
What do you, Johnny? What's the talk about this Ricky White III, man? How big of a concern do you feel right now with him as a very proven, very productive receiver for UNLV?
Can a receiver beat you? Maybe Ricky White can. He blocks punts. He returns kicks and punts. He has 7 touchdowns in his last 4 games outside of Jeanty. That's a hell of a month. 19 targets. He catches 16 or 17 of those balls for $170 plus 2-3 touchdowns. That type of day. Can he do that against this defense? Yeah. I don't think he will. Very low percentage, but yeah, it's probably possible. Think about this. You've had NFL receivers, Will Fuller, a first-round NFL receiver at Notre Dame for you. When you went into a game and you saw that a defense that puts good pressure on quarterbacks, like they get really good sack numbers, but they give up yardage and a lot of opportunities for splash plays. how do you attack that defense if you do have like an A1 star wide receiver? By the way, they don't lock corners on receivers. Marion McCoy will only guard Ricky White when it's field side and when he's out there. Boise State doesn't follow, and I don't know your philosophies on that. Sometimes I'm thinking when there's a star receiver like that, F it. Give me my best corner and just frickin' follow him.
Yeah, because you look at the stats, man. I mean, I love this De Jesus player as just a really interesting gadget player. Jacob De Jesus is 5'7", 175, dynamic, one of the best punt and kick returners in terms of flipping the game. Don't sleep on the importance of special teams in this ball game, Johnny. If UNLV is able to do what they've done all year and create some type of explosive play on the special teams, dude, David De Jesus, man, this dude has been phenomenal. He's as a returner on the year, kickoff returns. I mean, he is 822 yards last season. This year, 11 punts for 104.
Yeah,
it's gonna be really interesting to watch. The special teams, which has been a bit of a storyline, but got fixed like I told you it would, Johnny. It happened in real time. But Ricky White III, man, guy's got 9 touchdowns. He's averaging 13.3 per touch. De Jesus is averaging 17.2. And then this damn Bradley, this Jaden Bradley, 6'4", 195-pound junior, at number 0. He only's got 4 catches on the year, but he's averaging 25.3. So there are some playmakers available at UNLV's discretion. And a lot of those playmakers, man, when you have a quarterback that can create extra 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds because he's an off-schedule playmaker, that puts a lot of pressure, in particular man or match zone type of principles, to go and do what you do, and that's make a second play. I think Boise State either wins this game big or this thing's going to go down and be a classic, and it's going to go down to the wire. I don't think there's anything in between.
Wow. I love it, man. I wanted to finish with inside the coaches' headsets and just maybe the chaos on game day and that goes through. And now players are a part of it too, and what you've heard, how that relationship is going. But did PJ Fleck ever tell you to row the boat over the headset? And can't the head coach, you get the button where you can switch between the offense and the defense and just kind of leave and join the conversation? I've talked to a lot of ex-coaches, and I love headset stories, getting fights and whatnot. Do you have any? You've had that sucker on a lot, huh?
What happens on the headset stays in the headset, even if you're out of the industry, Johnny. And that, my friend, I will take with me to the grave.
Seriously? Yeah. Okay.
Especially with all and Johnny, some wild stuff has happened on the headsets, Johnny.
Man,
wild.
I would love to sit there in the coach's box or whatever and have one of those little earpieces and just listen to an offense or a defense. I mean, is it pretty, other than the play taking place, I mean, is it sometimes tough to hop into the conversation? Is there an order where the coach knows his place in pecking order? Is there the guy that won't shut up? Is there the head coach that keeps spying on you and flipping back and forth, and then you don't think the head coach is listening, and then all of a sudden he blurts, row the boat or run it or pass it, and you're like, okay, head coach, all right, I guess now we're going to run this play. I didn't know you were listening, but okay, let's roll with it. So Johnny, so I'm not going to give any names or specifics of names. It's not going to be a coaches stories after dark, and it gets real loose. And maybe someday, Johnny, I will give you some real names and stories. But at least with over 1,025 that are currently watching us right now on all our different channels, I will give some really unique introspective with some generalities. One of my favorite things when I was an offensive coordinator in particular is I would ask to make sure that I had a meeting with the offensive staff. The problem was a lot of times the head coach didn't sit in that meeting. So you couldn't, that was the one person that you had no ability to coach up and then hold them accountable because you laid out any type of parameters.
The head coach is the biggest problem on the headset.
This is just headset society, what you're
headset
talking
society.
about.
This
is how the culture of the headset is working. Here's what we do. Okay.
Yeah, and I've had head coaches that weren't loud and obnoxious on the headset, but were still a problem because they'd come in very quietly and say something and nobody could hear them because there was so much communication coming on. And I'm like, excuse me, everybody shut up. Hey, what did you say?
Okay. Yeah.
Coach,
Tight end coach says something in there and you just missed it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was like, I need to hear what the head coach says because he's the boss. He makes the big decisions. Johnny, the best thing about being on the headsets is I learned this from the Stanford model of having, we had a game plan responsibility of the run pod. So those who put together the run plan and those who put together the pass plan, we call that the pass pod. And so the run pod always had the ability to go over to the special teams line B, the old line B. So line A, that's where the head coach can go. Line B, that was like this secret society type of you could go there and find some peace and quiet and have some good conversations. You know what line B was, Johnny?
Who's on line
water
B?
Cooler. Line B was the water cooler, where you got to get around each other and bitch about your boss and then get to some real talk, man. That's what line B was on the headset. The other thing that happened at times, and I'll say this happened with more than 3 or 4 head coaches that I've worked for, is when it got so out of control. And this, I'm talking about, you're trying to call plays and it's just you and the head coach, and you just hear they're on the field. They have their mouthpiece right next to their mouth. And like you are living the game emotionally and you're up in the press box. Like you're wanting to get you're trying to create some zen for the best opportunity to think. And then also your signalers, at least back in the day, now it's quarterback headset communication or helmet communication. You want clarity to your signalers. And I've had signalers, which were backup quarterbacks, come up to me at halftime and be like, dude, you got to get the head coach under control.
Really?
And,
he's like, dude, you got to talk to him. He's getting.
You're like, coach, we can't hear you. Like all we hear is
because he's yelling at the ref. He's yelling at the ref or something, and they're screaming at the ref.
Or
and then
yelling at the quarterback, just being a fan, frankly. Like being a fan yelling at their television.
Wow, yeah.
It happens so much.
Because they don't turn it off. They don't mute.
Johnny, you know me pretty well. I'm not a profanity guy, right? I don't even off air. I'm not a huge I'm imperfect like all of us. But I've always tried to make sure that
depends how mad you are. The madder you get, the language.
Yeah,
goes
they might
it.
start.
You don't get very angry. You don't get angry very often. So yeah.
You've actually seen a few of them.
Yeah. Seen some good ones. I got some good
no doubt.
stories.
But I would get to the point when it got to the I am looking out for the best of our team, which is our offense being able to communicate. And I've gotten to the point where I have called the head coach by name and told him to shut the bleep up right now.
You're just done with it. Like, and you're willing to accept whatever verbal tongue lashing you get as a result, whatever that head coach is going to do to you. It doesn't matter. You're just saying, hey, I have to do this right now. That takes some guts, I bet, especially with some coaches who are, pretty demonstrative in their personalities. Like, Brian Kelly pounding that table after losing to USC. And now, that was a bad loss, but like those guys are intense, man. Sean Payton, who you cover in Denver, that dude on the sidelines, he's intense. I'm sure he's like that at practice too. And a lot of guys in that world.
Practice is wild.
Really? Okay.
He is as the TikTok and Instagram trend would say, he's very demure at practice. He's actually he won me over as a good teacher on the practice field. He would slow it down. Everybody would pay attention. He would teach the detail of a bubble route. And I was like, this is awesome, man. He's
Sean
a teacher.
Payton with the Broncos.
Yes, I was super impressive, man. It was super impressed. But man, I would say this, that anytime that I got to the point of using language that wasn't consistent with my normalcy and faith and beliefs, typically the headsets were really clean after that. And typically we would start cooking. and I would start hate calling plays, man. I was calling revenge plays, vengeful plays, and we'd start getting cooking, man. So, unfortunately,
plays, what do you mean? Like, or what's
just
give me what? Yeah, give me an example of a time.
Johnny, you ever been mad at somebody in a relationship, and maybe some of your actions after that are really well calculated and very petty? Like, I took out my anger on the situation on the defensive scheme and got a little bit loose and let the cojones hang a little bit, Johnny.
Okay, and ran some stuff on them that borderline kind of. Okay, yeah, all right.
Especially if I had a lead, I'm like, screw it, man. I'm pissed right now. I'm gonna freaking run the score up right now. Let's go.
Flea flicker.
I don't care. Well, they're gonna have that guy. He's gonna be one-on-one with Chaz Anderson. Hell yeah, I'm throwing the ball over their heads right now. I don't care about your coaches on the hot seat and, this is going to be bad for them. No, I'm mad at my boss right now, and I'm going to take it out on you.
It's 67-0, and we're still going to run the swinging gate on the PAT. Boom, bring it, right? Are you a swinging? You're not the OC. That's the head.
No, that's a complete special teams deal.
Swinging gate believer, or is it just not time?
I don't know, man. I have an appreciation for the NFL game. So yeah, I don't know, man. It can be very effective. It can be very efficient. I hate it when it gets scored on me, which we would always spend way too much time defending the swinging gate, and the special teams coordinator, would come to the head coach's office, be like, hey, this is a swinging gate team. They do like 13 things out of it. Do you think we can get an extra 5 minutes for PAT field goal period? I'm like,
okay. Special teams coach says.
So what you just did is admitted that, hey, they're probably going to score on swinging gate. Like, just tell me that. Just instead of finessing me, instead of buying me a glass of wine before you try to take me out, like, just tell me they're going to score on the swinging gate and get 2 points. Just tell me.
Gate. I know, man. You still see it at high level FBS football. You'll still see teams run the swinging gate. Chip Kelly. Man, I used to love some of Chip's just audacity.
Has Chip lost the stinger, though, man, over the last 10 years, bro?
There was a time where Chip Kelly, I was doing sports radio in Oregon in 2010, the year Oregon went undefeated, went to the Natty, lost to Auburn in that game. And Oregon, outside of maybe Miami, it felt like Oregon had created the term swag for college football. And Chip Kelly was cool. Like, I remember a play, there's like 15 seconds left in the half. Okay. He's at his own 5-yard line. Just take a knee and run it in. It's in the LA Coliseum. No, He goes shotgun and gets a Y cross with this tight end. Gets like a 70-yard play out of it and actually gets him into field goal range. And he would pull shit like that. And at the time, Oregon was super cool for doing stuff like that, but he would always do swinging gate and go for 2 in random situations. It was fun to cover.
Johnny, there's one thing that I pulled up before we started the show that I wanted to get to in my mic drop, just talking about the importance of this matchup and it being the most important, consequential Group of 5 regular season game in the history of the sport. Have you looked at the FanDuel Sportsbook or any of the Vegas odds on your odds on making the CFP? Have you looked at this?
I've seen a couple. I don't know it off the top of my head, but Boise has
this is the newest one. Okay. So Oregon's number 1 at minus 3,500, Georgia number 2 at minus 1,700, Ohio State 3 at minus 1,000, Texas 4 at minus 850, Penn State 5 at minus 600, University of Miami minus 340, Clemson at 7. And this is where the odds start to dip inside the minus 100 range. Clemson is minus 185 at 7. Tennessee is 8 at minus 170. Notre Dame is 9 at minus 155. Iowa State 10 at minus 135. Alabama 11 at minus 115. So then you get down LSU minus 115, tied with Alabama. And then Boise State, the first Group of 5 representative, is at minus 110. So odds on favorite to be the representative for the Group of 5. Okay, next one is Texas A&M at plus 115. Now you're getting money. Indiana, who's, the story of college football that's not being told enough right now, plus 140. K-State at plus 175. Ole Miss at plus 190. BYU at plus 220. SMU at plus 250. Missouri at plus 400. The very next Vegas odds to make the playoffs is UNLV at plus 600 from the group of 5.
I like both those bets, to be honest. UNLV is a great flyer because if they do win on Friday night, then they'll get to host the conference championship. If they win that again, whatever the case may be, UNLV would go, right? They'd probably be the group of 5 team, I would imagine, unless there's a service academy or some stuff there. So plus 600, I like those odds. I like Boise State at minus 110. That's basically even money. You know,
and then you get to the other before tonight. Yes, Liberty, breaking news, lost. But before tonight, it was Tulane at plus 700, Liberty at plus 750. So one is out of the. So for all intents and purposes, in one kind of week of football, Boise State has in front of them the opportunity to eliminate 2 of the contenders from the group of 5 in beating UNLV and then Liberty taking an L. And then not to mention, right below that group of Tulane and Liberty, let's see if I can pull it up, is I believe it's Army is first, then Navy. And the reason that Navy, I think, is further out is that they play Notre Dame this weekend. And I think that is going to be an incredibly important game. That game is on the road in a neutral site at MetLife Stadium in New York City. It's a funky place to play. Yep, it's a strange environment. I coached a game there. I coached against Syracuse in that stadium. It was strange. When I was at Notre Dame. Regular season, we played Syracuse. Notre Dame refuses to play service academies on their bases, which is, in West Point and Annapolis, or they'll never come to play Air Force. Maybe once they did. They play them typically at neutral site stadiums that they want to bring the Notre Dame brand to even further, or that have massive Notre Dame, alumni population and huge Catholic fan bases.
Is that just crazy being the OC at Notre Dame? Sorry to interrupt, but that's high level shiz, man. Like just the red carpet, it feels like it's just constantly rolled out for you. You walk and you have rose petals like Eddie Murphy in Coming to America. I mean, it's just that must have been such a cool experience for you to go to, like, New Year's 6 bowl games at Notre Dame, where it does just mean it's such a big deal there, It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, but there's nothing that compares. I'll say this, man. I've coached in, a couple Fiesta Bowls, 3 of them, 3 different teams, 2 Rose Bowls with Stanford. And there's nothing that even remotely compares to going to one of those types of games when you are an outsider. You're a group of 5, a non-automatic qualifier. And the year I went with Boise State, it just felt so different. The appreciation level from your players, from your staff, to be in that type of environment was so different than when you went with teams that have been to a bunch of those types of games. The fan base, like just the fact that it traveled so incredibly well, dude. There's that nothing
Fiesta Bowl,
like it.
Yeah, it was crazy for you guys. I mean, all 3. I mean, Boise State just traveled so well to those and won all 3. Just big time stuff, man.
Can you believe it's been a decade, Johnny? Full 10 years, brother. 10 years. And here it is. You're staring down the pipe of an even bigger and even more significant. The prize at the end of this rainbow is 10x of even just going to a Fiesta Bowl. And that's what's at stake, because it's not just getting there. It's getting there and having a chance. And that's what I believe is why this game is so important on Friday night, is that you win this football game, you're clearly in the driver's seat the rest of the way. And it would take an Army or Navy upset over Notre Dame, plus them not losing the rest of the way, either one of them. Let's play a little bit. Let's get a little weird here, Johnny. I know we're going over. Boise State wins and wins out. Both Army and Navy win out, and they both beat Notre Dame. Who's going?
I think maybe Boise State will get the edge with Jeanty, but they have a Notre Dame win. That's bigger than any win Boise
Notre Dame
State
win.
has.
What would Notre Dame, if both Army and Navy beat Notre Dame, who would Notre Dame's 3 losses that we at least know right now be?
The 2 academies and NIU.
Yes, then Boise State goes. Okay, what about Notre Dame beats Navy this weekend? Boise State wins the game at UNLV, controls their destiny and rolls through the remainder of their schedule. Army rolls through the remainder of their schedule. 3 weeks from now, Army beats a Notre Dame team ranked in the top 7, top 5. Who's going then?
There's going to be that. I need a cup of coffee or another energy drink for that conversation. There's going to be, I mean, that would, I don't buy that that's going to happen, but if it does, yes, no question. If it does, that'll be a talking point. An undefeated group of 5 team, whoever it is, versus the 1-loss Boise State team with the Heisman winner. I don't know, man. It's going to be fun, Sanford. Good stuff as always on Ball Talk. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Well done, Sanford.
Appreciate you, man. Great show. And the big show is coming Friday night, 8:15. Or 8:30? Is it 8:30?
Are you talking about the pregame party? No. Yeah. This is going to be big too, though, Coach. I don't know if you're going to be hopping on, but yeah, everybody can come see us at the D up in the Bar Canada. So
are you going, Johnny?
I'll be there, brother.
Let's go, dude.
I'll be there.
I'll be calling a high school game. I got a little Ralston Valley in Arvada, Colorado versus Denver East. It's going to be a hell of a game, man. I got the Denver East Angels. City
Mikey
school,
Media.
man.
Mikey Media. All right, guys. We'll catch you next time.